Hello, and welcome to Q's Retro Perspective. Today we're talking about a game that I don't know if many people know about. It's Vanguard on Atari 2600. Now this is an Atari game, meaning the story's in the manual, so let's read. Woo-wee, if the folks back home could see me now. When I joined the Vanguard expedition, I never thought I'd be flying through the tunnels of Eteria looking for a mythical city of mystery. It might not be a myth. Captain, do you mean to tell me you really believe there's such a city paved with silver and ruled by a giant called Gond? Why not? It's right here in the logbook we found in the Eteria excavations. That's pretty convincing. But that book's dated in 1983. People believed all sorts of weird things back then. Flying reindeer, egg-laying rabbits. When you've been on as many expeditions as I have, you'll believe anything can exist. This whole planet is pretty unreal. Take these tunnel walls, for instance. Every color of the rainbow. I'd swear we were in heaven if it weren't for the rocks. Hey, you almost spared us on a stalagmite. I know our spaceship has 5 lives, but we've got a long way to go, and we need all the lives we've got. If this logbook is telling the truth, these tunnels are filled with dangerous flying objects, hovering midships, Harley rockets, and helm balloons. Yeah, Gareems waiting to tear us with their tentacles, and that other cozy customer, the flying chemless snake. Seriously though, what do you think the logbook means by watch out for the rain of Ramadas in the bleak zone? I think the pilot that kept the logbook was out of his mind, probably bitten in the head by a chemless snake. Well, if there is anything in this tunnel, we'll be sighting it pretty soon. The tunnel map says we're entering the mountain zone. How's the fuel supply holding out? Getting low. We'd better infuse energy pretty quick, or we'll crash. I certainly hope the logbook is right about the energy pods growing in the mountain zone. Pod energy is supposed to make us indestructible for 10 seconds. Why, if that's true, we won't need to fire our lasers. Oh sure, just run headlong into an enemy ship and pow, down it goes. Listen, I don't believe in pod power any more than I believe in midships. If there's anything like that on Eteria, I'll eat it. Well, I hope you have the stomach for it. Look what's coming. Great dawns, midships as thick as hornets and twice as mad! Well, they're all yours. Fire at will. While you're at it, keep an eye out for energy pods. Roger, City of Mystery, here we come. And that is all directly from the manual. And yes, this is one of the few games I have the manual for. I keep them in an airtight bag stored where the sun can't damage them. I keep them in a Ziploc bag under my game shelf. Now, in my opinion, Atari games are so simple you can find fun in any of them. Even E.T., whether that fun be actually playing the game or just laughing in its face. But to me, there is legitimate, actual fun to Vanguard. As of now, it is safe to say it's one of my favorite games on the system. The graphics are pretty good for Atari, the story is cool, and the gameplay is even better. Speaking of which, all the gameplay footage you'll see is from an emulator. Boo! Okay, settle down. Have you seen the price of RF capture cards? Getting into gameplay, there are many enemies as mentioned in the story section of the manual, and they appear in different zones, but the zones they appear in aren't too important. These things are mists. They try to crash into your ship and like to hide from your shots. Later in the game, they also shoot missiles. These things are called Harleys. They can also hit your ship like the rest of the enemies, but their main attack is missiles. And then there are helms, which look and act the exact same way ammos do. They even appear in the same zone. Why make 2 enemies at that point? Oh, the ammos are first cousins to helms, and helms appear in the rainbow zone. Ammos appear in rainbow zone too. That makes so much more sense. Now, the enemies in striped zone always give me trouble. In this zone, you can choose the left or right path. Politics! The left path contains Gareems, which are these things. They, quote, extend their tentacles to grab you. They don't, they just move left to right. On the right path, you got your force fields, barriers, enemy bases, and floating panes. If you hit any of these enemies, you die. I usually just go with the right path because the enemies move slower and are easier to shoot down, in my opinion. Although the enemies I have trouble with have never been too bad, because when you get a game over, you start right where you left off. Yeah, if you die, you start right where you left off, and if you get a game over, your score just resets to 0. You do have the option to restart with this little countdown, though. But there's still more hard-to-pronounce enemies. Chemuluses, Chemuli, Chemulo, whatever these enemies are actually kind of cool. If you dock into the open area, they'll give you extra points, but only 3 times. Then they start hurting you when you touch them. And then there's still one more.
After you defeat the Cumuluses, Ramadas appear. They're basically giant arrows raining from the sky.
I told you I'd need the steel umbrella, Mom.
You can shoot them for points, but I usually just avoid them.
Now, once you make it through all that, through all those enemies, across all those zones, you finally make it to the City of Mystery.
This is the one and only Gond. He's the boss of all bosses, protecting the City of Mystery from all who enter.
It takes one hit to kill him.
Yes, only one hit. But there is a strategy to score higher. The longer you wait, the higher the score add-on for beating him is. But you will be crushed by enclosing barriers if you wait too long. And after that, you keep looping between 2 tunnel variations, refighting Gond at the end of each one.
Simple, high-score-based 80s game stuff.
Besides the gameplay and story itself, I also like the control scheme and graphics. Obviously, the main set of controls is the joystick and button, but what I find interesting is you can customize the controls to an extent. By putting the A-B switches in different orientations, different forms of control are available. In the manual, there's a section denoting the different combinations and how each control style works.
But one of my favorite aspects of the game are the graphics.
Now, in today's day and age of Skyrim's and Breath of the Wild's, it's easy to point at this game and say, the scrolling is janky, there's a hugely clashing and limited color palette, there's only 2 levels, the sound is just a bunch of beeps, and so on. But for Atari 2600, this game is freaking awesome. I like that it scrolls continuously and not screen by screen like games such as Pitfall. I like that they at least attempted a theme song with the limited sound library of pitched beeps. It's a little ear grating, but that was the tech at the time. Like, the NES did still use beeps, but there was a wider range of pitches, and there were 5 sound channels. The Atari 2600 only had 2. Everything about this game screams effort, and I feel anybody who's into collecting for the Atari 2600 should at least try the game, because it's good for so many reasons.
Oh, and I really like sci-fi.